Alright. Peace to the collective, peace to everybody who's been watching this series. Thank you. If you're new, like, subscribe, share, comment, all that good stuff. This is for the collective. So this is part 2 of Debunking Evolution. This part's gonna be like geology and structures and different things that kind of push back those timelines that they give us. They like to give us these timelines of basically Homo sapien, 300,000 years ago or so, coming out of Africa, banging Neanderthals, then like 40,000 years ago, other races pop up. I'm gonna obliterate those timelines today. Okay, so we got tools that rewrite history, out of place artifacts, and geological discoveries that challenge the mainstream narrative. Let's get into that a little bit. That's a computer chip, but we'll get into how stuff like that gets into rocks. But first, government redacted information on ancient structures in New Zealand. So, this is a common theme around the world with many countries. Okay, we have documented evidence here though. So, the government obviously is going to claim that's false, fake news, all that stuff. But there's a book. It's called The Ancient Celtics in New Zealand, and it actually shows an official archive document which shows New Zealand government purposely withholding archaeological information, okay, from the forest. Okay, so there's actual documented evidence of them hiding archaeological, structures and evidence and different things in New Zealand specifically. And WGS 48, for people who don't know, okay, there's certain places that GPS doesn't really work well, and New Zealand is one of them. And for my people who do the research on the Google Earths and stuff, that's probably a place we should start looking. There might be some stuff there going on. Okay. It doesn't really stop there. So, the Kaimanawa Wall, dated 330,000 years ago, according to their own dating methods. Okay, but the government says it's a natural structure, which is also a common thing. We're gonna see this common theme of scientists and different people trying to write off these things as natural structures, a lot of them. And it kind of gets like redundant after a while when it piles up. Like one or two, it's okay, but it kind of gets redundant after a while. There's also a very ancient skeleton found in South Auckland. Okay, the State Secrets Act allows confidentiality. So, for my deep divers, for my researchers, New Zealand might be a place of interest for the future, for the people who are looking for stuff. Side note, I see people taking my content. I see you, okay? And it's actually successful channels, okay? I'm not talking to, like, people who are small time, okay? I see people reposting my stuff. It could end up in people's algorithms. I don't really know. All I know is I put out content, right? And then I say certain things that's not even out there. So specifically this series, right? For example, I'm putting a lot of scientific information out there because this series is specifically to show that the ancients were telling the truth, and this is to back up all the claims, all the evidence that they already have in science. It's like a lot. So I want to present that. And I'm giving very few downloads in between, purposely, okay? Because that's not really what this series is about. Even though for my people who know, we know, right, and we could talk. But this is like for us to have citations, so we're not playing with these people, okay? And then, right, we get the last laugh. So when I do get downloads, and then I see another channel talking about some stuff that I'm talking about, bro, that's weird. And it's not coincidental, okay? Because I made very specific type of claim. All right, I don't want to get too detailed into it right now, but I've already made predictions that have come true on this channel, and I know there's been people watching from earlier, so it doesn't surprise me. It's just weird that like I don't get the like, I don't get the share, I don't get the comment, but people is watching my stuff, taking my downloads, and then going out there giving it to the collective, which is cool. Like, get the information out there, however it got to get there, but it's just weird. Like, not even gonna give me the credit for the download. Like, you can act like that was your download. Like, seriously. So this is disputed, and we're gonna talk about it, and it's going to prove something from last video. Electromagnetic device 20,000 years old, found in a rock in the Kosovan Mountains in Russia. So they call it the Kosovo transformer. Okay, and scientists consider this to be misidentifying modern man-made debris that have been fused with minerals over a short period of time. So basically, there was this electromagnetic device, and they found it in the rocks in these mountains. And scientists are trying to say that the rock that formed around this device, it happened in a short period of time. Like the mineral deposits, all these things, right? That's our point about all these things that we're calling rocks and fossils, right? And we can actually prove that things evolve rapidly as far as like petrification and things like that. And their claims of millions of years isn't supported by that type of experimental evidence, right? Even though you could say there's many fields, including history, and they layer their evidences on top of each other and then come up with average dates, and then they check, is this culture and this religion and in this time, does it match the artifacts and the art and the way they were doing their potteries and whatever. So there's ways to date things using those methods, but some stuff are based on these models that are created in their heads based on these timelines that there's no real proof for. And that's kind of the point of this series too, is to take the facts and to like kind of get away from these beliefs and keep the science, so that we're not just sitting here on some crazy stuff talking about whatever, and we can't even verify our information, and then our ancestors living on science taught this, and then we're gonna sit here goofy as hell just saying, oh, don't trust no one, don't trust science. No, don't trust people, trust the science. Science is real. Just watch it, because science could be dangerous too. Anyway, I kind of got sidetracked on that. So pushing back the narrative, the timeline, the dates. The Suruti Mastodon, 130,000 year old mastodon skeleton, was found in California with butchering and tool marks. Scientists argue no tools or human remains found at the site since then. Okay, so that's their argument, right? That, they didn't find nothing else along with these bones, so how do we know humans actually did that, right? It could be anomaly, it could be stuff like that. But they actually so scientists followed up. So since then, the theory has been debunked by a re-examination 1 year later. So people who hear about this, they do the Google search, and then the Google search is going to come up, oh, well, scientists don't believe it because of this. But they're not going to talk about the follow-up re-examination to reaffirm and reconfirm the original theories that, yes, this was 130,000 years old, and those are tool marks and butchering marks on these bones made from people who were in California that long ago, according to their dating methods. So, if you want to go off their dating methods, right? This is 130,000 years old, according to their own timeline. If that doesn't make sense on what I'm saying, I know I went off on the dating methods and all that stuff, and we're going to do deeper dives on how do we find out the age of stuff, right? But it's very important to understand, if I was debating Christian, a Jew, a Muslim. I would debate them using the Bible, the Torah, the Quran. I would debunk them with their own material. So I'm debunking their own timelines using their own timelines. Okay, so if they're gonna say that Homo sapiens came out of here at this time, and they did this and that, these states are pushing this back altogether. Oh, this is an anomaly. Let's see. Next, 160,000-year-old stone tools found in China. That's how true it is. Okay? In central China, okay, are forcing scientists to rethink human intelligence. Shattered long-held belief that Asian Paleolithic technology was stagnant, found to have happened during the Ice Age, challenging the assumption that long leaps in technology only prosper during warm periods. So, in the evolution theory, in these timelines, they believe that the European and the African beings were evolving technologically, while people in Asia, people in the Americas were still like non-existent, still savage beasts or whatever they considered them, right? So this directly debunks that whole narrative, right? And what it also debunks, it challenges the belief that major technological advances only happen in Africa and Europe, right? So we know now that technological advancements will happen in Asia, in Europe, and Africa. And later in this video, I'm approving the Americas, okay? So this whole timeline of like monkeys and then like the wheel and the whole fire, that whole stuff, if we want to have like a honest conversation about history in our past, we need to get over these crazy ideas which come from people who created these dates before they even had dating methods. And there's a lot of science, and we need to follow the science respectfully, and we need to get the beliefs out of that stuff, because science shouldn't come with beliefs. You can have theories, but that shouldn't consume the actual fact of what is and what isn't. So, and they also assume, they don't know who did it, they assume that Denisova did it. So, we already went over Neanderthal and Denisova in the last video. More artifacts pushing the timelines back, okay? Artifacts discovered in Tanzania, alright? Scientists discovered 27 1.5 million year old bone tools crafted from elephant skeletons, pushing back the timeline of hominin technological evolution. So, everywhere we look, right, when people follow these scientific pages, okay, follow them, every social media you have, follow some. And stay up to date with these new current findings. Some of them are fake, some of them are real. I had to go through a bunch of different examples, and a lot of examples are written off by scientists as far as these are modern day artifacts that went through some sort of petrification types of processes, and that's how they became like fossilized or rocked or even in the coal, right? And they're like hoaxes. So to find legitimate findings that even scientists like agree on is hard because of the narratives placed in people's heads, right? And plus, people do like to lie on both sides. So it's important to do research too, and not just read the article, like the title, and then just roll with that, right? So what I like to do is I save the information, right? Even if I don't see it till years later. And so then now I'm making content like this, right? I could read through these articles and I could see the information, I could see the tests, and I could see like which scientists did it and when they did it, and what's the general consensus, and then like what's the belief amongst the native people, and what's the belief amongst like the native historians, and then you can see like these contradicting like either timelines, or some agree, some don't, and there's more evidence for some or others. We have to do our research. we have to do our research. Okay. Bottom line, moral of the story. I'm so appreciative to be here and presenting this information today. So, in 2017, right, in Morocco, burnt tools dated to 315,000 years ago. Okay, so at these times, we're still not supposed to have certain technological advancements, right? But apparently, they were doing damn near metallurgy 350,000 years ago, okay? Thermoluminescence to forge the tools, pushing back the emergence of Homo sapiens back 100,000 years. So, if any damn scientist or person is coming up to you on your page or anything, or bothering you saying, oh, you're dumb for saying people didn't come out of Africa 300,000 years ago, be like, no, you're dumb because apparently it's 400,000 years ago now, dumbass. Okay? So, challenges theory that modern humans originate in East Africa. It suggests a much more diverse and complex model where life was spread out through Africa. Okay? So, breaking down these timelines and these new discoveries, here we're going to create a new model that encompasses all the facts. Okay? And we'll go over dating methods so we can figure out actual truths. Alright? Absolute dating methods and relative dating methods. Okay? Until then, we're collecting all these informations, saving them, okay, for later. Addressing them. The oldest known stone tools are 3 million years old. Okay, they're called the Elementary stone tools. Alright, I don't know why I added that. It's very brief. They're not like super complex or anything. 3 million years old according to their timelines. Okay, so Homo sapien shouldn't even be like a thing according to them at that timeline. So they're gonna say some other monkey hominin did it because that's how they do it. Some geologists they call creation geologists, right? Creationists or whatever. So you got this geologist, right? Dr. Koytsipin, right? And he's the director of the Natural Sciences Scientific Research Center at Moscow's International Independent Ecological Political University, okay, in Turkey. And he found tire tracks that are 14 million years old, according to him, because basically, if you want to go off their timelines, if you want to go off their dating methods, right, which he dated the volcanic ash, so he did radiometric dating, right, and he's saying, if I'm going to be honest with these dates, and I'm going to go off these timelines that y'all are giving me, these tire tracks are 14 million years old. Now, contemporary scientists and mainstream scientists are going to argue against that, of course, okay, they're going to say geological reasons, okay, they're going to say that that's not as old as what they're saying it is, okay, for whatever geological reason that happened there, okay, but what's important for people to know is these methods aren't always as accurate as I showed in the last video as far as dating, okay. If you want to find like an element or a mineral, trace minerals, you want to find something, geology is great for that, okay, but if you want to find out the age of something, it's not the best. That's why they use different sciences, okay, because there's relative dating and there's absolute dating, okay, and then you have a lot of dating methods, and then they use a common narrative story to overlap these sciences to say it agrees, which sometimes it does, but sometimes it doesn't, and people want to ignore that it doesn't. We're not doing that here, okay. We got another one. This is a Zapata track. Okay, 300 million year old footprint, okay, found in New Mexico in the mountains, okay. It's embedded in Permian period, okay. Basically, that's sediment that predates humans, dinosaurs, damn, sea mine predates almost, it's one of the older layers that they considered of the earth, okay. scientists say that it's some type of other animal. It's a it's an unknown Permian animal, basically, that apparently had a human-like footprint. Not exactly, but very, very close, right? And that would date it to 300 million to 250 million years old, according to their dating method, which is why they don't accept stuff like this, and they usually challenge it, right? So we're gonna get more into like geological structures. There might be a few more examples of some footprints, but this is a news article of a wall in Texas. It's called the Great Wall of Texas. Okay, and scientists say this is a natural structure. Okay, take a look. All right. Okay. It predates humanity. It's dated at 85 million years old according to their dating methods, which is why scientists say it's a natural structure. So for most of these things, scientists have an answer, and it's going to be geological reasons or natural structures. Okay, but some they can't argue, which you can see. So what's real and what's not? Those are the questions we're going to deep dive into in later videos, because we can't trust everybody, right? So science says things, and science can prove things, but we got to be diligent about knowing what's real or what's not, because some things are descriptive, but we need explanations too. So a few more examples. A man named William J. Meister. Okay, in Utah in 1963, they found shoe fossil with trilobite on the bottom, dating 500 million years old. Okay, scientists try to talk it away, say it's a fake. Okay, they try to say that it was caused by natural erosion. Right? They've done that with other things, like for example, in 1922, a petrified shoe sole faced similar skepticism. All right. There are fakes and hoaxes in geology and in archaeology, so it is important to try and figure out what's real or not. I'm gonna break down the wall really soon, but for now, Gunung Padang, okay, in Indonesia, scientists discovered. Scientists actually drilled through layers, okay, and they used radar, and they proved that that structure is 28,000 years old. Okay, now there's some pushback from contemporary scientists or mainstream scientists saying that that the bottom layers could be like natural formations, right? And since it's built on top of a volcano, that that could possibly have formed the bottom layer of that structure, and then they built on top of it. That's one of their theories. Okay, and they're also saying that there's no human fossils or tools around the site to help date or give that 28,000 validation. Okay, right? Natural weather conditions, landslides. That's their way of trying to talk their way out of it. For the people who believe it, they believe it. I'm not really sure. They're not really sure. We're not really sure. I know there's a tunnel under there. They don't know that yet. That's something I predicted. I predicted the pyramid tunnels before them scientists even did that LiDAR stuff. I predicted the pyramids under Machu Picchu. There's pyramids under all them structures. Excuse me, there's tunnels under all them structures. People are gonna find that out later. I already predicted that. We're gonna talk about Egypt and how the history of Egypt is older than what they're talking about. So for the people from Egypt, back in the day, the ancients, they said that they found them. So they didn't even build these structures, okay? They know that they found them, and a lot of people, the contemporary theory amongst conspiracy theorists, I believe, is that like some of the pharaohs, what do you call it? Like they didn't rebuild over them. They like you know, when you got an old building, you put it under reconstruction, right? So they restored it. They basically quote unquote restored it. So, um, this is from geologists. The Great Pyramid of Giza is 10,000 years older than we thought. Okay, geologists from the University of Bologna find that the erosion rate doesn't match the narrative. Okay, so from the base of the Khafre pyramid, okay, there's like there was 12 points, okay, on the pyramid on the base, and they measured 12 different points, and they were getting different dates. So it came out to be 22,000 something. I wrote it there. They were on one side it was like 9,000, on one side it was like, you know, 15,000, on another side it was like 40,000. So they averaged out all the sides to about 22,941, right? And mainstream geologists, archaeologists, scientists, Egyptologists, they argue against this particularly. So for people who are conspiracy minded, they might roll on one side. For the people who are the contemporary science side, they might roll on another side. But I would like to dig deeper, and then let's see how people feel. So there's actually something called the Khafre Project. So on the same pyramid, right, in 2024, the Italian researchers found massive vertical shafts, spiral staircases, and chambers under the pyramid at Khafre. Okay, so they used what do you call it? Synthetic aperture radar, right? Which is basically like they use radio waves, right? They use radio wave pulses, right, in an aircraft, and they fly over a place, and those pulses eventually make a picture, right? And basically their argument against this is, since it's like solid stone that they can't see under it, but since there's a lot of sand you're able to see through the with radio waves. So some people are arguing like you can see, but just not from the top. Most radar experts are arguing against it. In 2025, they actually came out and doubled down and came out with more evidence. Right, the actual radio engineer, right, Filippo Boandi, right, he followed up, right, he said he used 4 independent satellite imaging operators, right, Umbra, Capella, Space, IC, and Italy's Cosmo SkyMed, right. He said they scanned the region and stumbled upon similar results. Raw tomography data that proves the presence of these structures under the pyramids. Okay? And then he's actually quoted himself saying all 4 satellites gave the exact same results. That is really amazing. We cannot announce anything without these basic scientific methods. So, scientists are arguing against it, but you have independent researchers, and they're just trying to argue against people's backgrounds. They like to do that a lot. Oh, what's your expertise? Even though, you know, that 17-year-old fixed the ISS data, right? Showed there was a problem, then they hired him, right? What expertise he had? Anybody? That 12-year-old that their paper just became peer-reviewed, right? What expertise they had? The 12-year-old, they was a scientist for how many years? Y'all need to stop bullshitting. That's the real fucking truth right there. People be playing. And gatekeeping science, that ain't cool. Gatekeeping isn't cool. The truth is the truth. You don't have to believe. You could interpret data different, right? But to be a gatekeeper, that's weird energy. So, for people who don't know, there was another group of geologists, right? And this study was actually presented at the International Conference of Geoarchaeology and Archaeomineralogy held in Sofia, titled Geological Aspect of the Problem of Dating the Great Egyptian Sphinx Construction. Okay? And they came out using dating methods, right? So if you believe the scientific way that they use for dating, they came up with the Sphinx being 800,000 years old. Okay? And they're basically saying that they found erosion marks not just on the sides of the Sphinx, they found on the top, basically saying that it was submerged at some point. Okay, and they ran the data, they ran the scientific data, and they're saying the last time that that place was underwater was 800,000 years ago. Okay, and their evidence is the erosion marks on the Sphinx are match the ocean currents. They literally match the ocean currents. But scientists are gonna push back, say that's like wind and sand like erosion made that. So that is gonna be the scientific argument against that evidence. Okay, but we have evidence that Egypt is way older than what people are saying. Okay, because whatever's under those pyramids, what is that? Who built that? At what time and how? Okay, we're talking about big copper cores. We're talking about big cities under there. They're not talking about this 40 tunnels right near the Great Pyramids. 40 tunnels. Anyone could look that up. I didn't even add that here. That's just facts. Okay? If you didn't know. So, this whole theory of people from Asia migrating over to the Americas, that's cap, and we're gonna smash the whole theory, the whole timeline, and everything. Okay, starting with Virginia Steen McIntyre. Okay, for people who don't know her story, it's very important. Very important to know her story. She's a geologist she's literally fired for telling the truth. Literally, if you had to generalize her whole story. But basically, what happens? She's at a site in New Mexico. Okay, in Mexico. It's called New Aplico, I believe. And she found camel bones with butchering marks and all types of stuff. Okay, and she did 4 different testing methods on these things, right? And she came across the conclusion, right, using their scientific method and stuff like that, right, their dating methods, that those artifacts and fragments are 250,000 years old in Mexico. Okay, when was the last time camels were in the Americas? Think about that. Camels come from the Americas. Camels originate here. Did they swim over there? No, they migrated over that way. Humans migrated that way. They didn't migrate this way, from Asia this way. They migrated that way out. Okay, they didn't even actually migrate that way. They migrated from the top, both ways. Anyway, so what basically happened is she went to her university, she went to her college, she presented the information, right? And they didn't like the dates, because finding something even 20,000 years old would have been like a crazy find. Okay, in the Americas at that time. She 250,000 years, according to their methods. So they obviously fired her. They obviously didn't let her work in geology anymore. Okay, you could look up her story, and it clearly proves that they have certain timelines that they like to do. Because when you're dating something, you have multiple dates, right? And they either average it out or they pick the dates that they like. This is facts across multiple sciences, and that's how they come across these dates. Okay, and unless you got different places with certified history, right? Like when you got like the Chinese history, right? And then you got another history, right? And they align with their dates, they align with their astrology, they align with everything. That's how you know for sure, along with the dating methods and all that stuff. If you don't have all that stuff, you don't know. These are not absolute methods. Right? So humans have been around the Americas a long time, scientifically proven, right? So let's debunk more narratives, right? So this whole hunter-gatherer, humans started as hunter-gatherers, this whole thing with the wheel and the fire, let's debunk that. So this is a scientific article. Early humans mastered plant processing 170,000 years ago, challenging Paleolithic meat-eater myth. So this whole Paleolithic era, we're debunking stuff that happened during this specific era. Research published in the Journal of Archaeological Research highlights early humans, instead of surviving solely on hunted meat, ancestors utilized advanced thermal processing, cooking and roasting to extract vital calories and nutrients from roots and seeds. This requires strategic planning, intergenerational knowledge sharing, and complex social cooperation. So, a common narrative is people in the Americas were tribal and they were spread out and separate. And I'm going to smash that theory to pieces. And this is the first piece of evidence. Next, city under the Amazon, dated 12,000 years ago. Okay, huge cities with hundreds of thousands of people, mounds, pyramids, canals, plazas, debunks long-held belief that tribes in the Amazon were spread out in small groups, instead massive organized societies. Okay, so 12,000 years ago, Rome didn't even exist yet. People were still in caves. These people had advanced societies with pyramids and mounds and societies. Everything was connected in giant cities that spread all across the Americas, which I'm about to prove later in this video too. This is older than any other site we know in the Amazon. We have a Eurocentric view of civilization, but this shows we have to change our idea about what culture and civilization says. Professor Stephen Rostand, Director of Investigation at the National Center for Scientific Research in France. Okay, that's his direct quote. And he's the one who led the research. Alright? And another quote, it changes the way we see Amazonian cultures. Most people picture small groups, probably naked, living in hunts and clearing land. This shows ancient people lived in complicated urban societies, says co-author Antoine Dorison. So, scientifically, we already have the evidence to debunk their timelines, right? But yet people are still rolling with their timelines. People are still rolling with these narratives and these talking points, right? Or people are saying things and then they're not being able to present the evidence, right? So we're here with the evidence, y'all. Next one, Tikal. Okay, this was a massive Mayan city, okay, 40 times bigger than the size of Rome, which spanned Mexico's Yucatan Peninsula, Guatemala, Belize, Honduras, and El Salvador. Okay, 60,000 structures, right, hidden under the jungle. May have had as many as 10 to 15 million people. All right, this is a later date, but these are massive cities. Massive, huge, massive cities all working together. These aren't people. There's, on a tribal level, it's all levels. Okay, so think about, you have like savage all the way up to technologically advanced. That's how tribalism is. Okay, they want you to think it's only savage, or the most technologically advanced is, it's like still savage the way they describe it. Okay, it's disgusting. So here, proving that the Americas was a massive conglomerate of many civilizations that were interconnected. 3,000-year-old enormous Mayan civilization discovered, complete with roads, reservoirs, pyramids, and ball courts. LiDAR surveys in northern Guatemala revealed a highly interconnected 3,000-year-old Mayan complex spanning 650 square miles. The network linked 417 cities and villages via 110 miles of elevated superhighways. Debunks earlier assumptions that Mayan civilizations were scattered. So Mayan civilization went up from all the way to Alaska, which I'm going to show right now. But it went from Alaska all the way down to the South Americas. And deeper than that, Mayan is just a trading language. So that's what we're calling them, right? But that they spoke a common language to trade, but there's still different tribes and different peoples in different places. Right? We think that we could encompass a whole group with just one name. We do that a lot as humans, but that's not the case at all. Right? And then we have the Louisiana maps. right? So now we're moving up to the Americas, to Louisiana mounds, right? And LSU found out that they have the oldest mounds published in the American Journal of Science by Yale University, 11,000 years. I said years ago, but it's 11,000 years old. Mounds are aligned along the azimuth that is 8.5 degrees east of true north. Okay, and according to LSU astronomers, okay, about 6,000 years ago, a giant red star Arcturus would rise about 8.5 degrees east of north in the night sky, which means it would have aligned along the crest of both LSU campus mounds. Okay, so those mounds were built according to their timeline specifically for those celestial alignments. And what we're going to see is all these structures are built along celestial alignments because Earth was one big giant power grid at one point that people rediscovered. And the ancients talked about giants built it and they just rediscovered it. Okay? That's history. And contemporary historians wouldn't believe that. But we're not worried about what people believe. So, drop 45 lane. Archaeological site in the Great Lakes, around 10,000 years old. For people who don't know, who live around the Finger Lakes, you're living around an ancient structure that was around a long time ago. Okay? And it was also part of this large network of things happening. Okay? I didn't put it in here, but there's also stuff happening in Canada. There's stuff happening in Alaska. I'm doing more research into the Greenland stuff. Okay, it's not easy to find information about stuff out there. It's really brain busting. But I'm gonna continue debunking the narrative of people being kind of savage. So, advanced metallurgy. About 10,000 years ago, indigenous hunter-gatherers, see that hunter-gatherer stuff? In North America, particularly around the Great Lakes, were among the first people in the world to metal work. Okay? These ancient Native Americans, out of copper complex cold hammers, right? So, the common narrative is, copper weapons and stuff to make these advanced tunnels and structures. These people are crazy with that. Alright? They're absolutely nuts. And we don't believe none of that stuff because, see, we're rolling with, you can't get new information, then roll with the old bullshit still, right? So if we're breaking through these walls, you're breaking through them all the way, right? And we're talking about advanced civilizations and advanced technology. Why the fuck they only have copper shit? Like, seriously. They think people are that fucking stupid. And some people are that fucking stupid that they need, honestly, like, scientists are the new gods that people worship, and if this dude don't believe it, they don't believe it. And it's like, they're more religious than the Christians and the Jews and the Muslims. They're more religious than these people. I swear to God. Because they believe in people. They believe in these people more. They'll be like, are you an expert? Or they'll be like, oh, the experts say that? Or they'll be like, are you a scientist? And it's like, can you read? Does your brain work? Do your eyes work? Like, is there anything there? Like, that you can make your own, formulate your own, like, anything? Like, nothing? You can have your own independent thoughts, your own independent beliefs, right? Because not everything's proven. We don't know everything. That would be fucking retarded to say, right? That'd be dumb as fuck. So, oh, you're so insensitive for using that word. Bro, please. Seriously. Some people are just fucking retarded, okay? And that has nothing to do with people with actual mental disabilities, okay? Because they're not. They're actually super creative and not work with people with mental disabilities, okay? They're super creative and they're super smart, okay? They're just full of parasites, okay? And that affects their motor abilities. And since it fucks with their functions, they showed that autism in kids, and I'm going to present more stuff in later videos, but they found that they don't resonate with their gut instinct. Right, so they go off their mind a lot, which is why they seem like kind of insensitive, right? And then you always see them like plotting and thinking because they kind of stuck in their head in a way for real, right? So they're not retarded. These people that need scientists to actually tell them what to believe are fucking retarded. Seriously, okay? Know the difference. So Were the ancients more advanced? The Mayan calendar is more accurate than the Gregorian calendar, okay, because it calculates the solar year. This is a fact that the ancients are more advanced than we are today. They could tell time better than us. Till today. Then scientists, oh, we got this atomic clock. We're measuring the time of an atom. The atom don't fucking tell the day or the night or any type of time at all. You're measuring oscillation rates. The same way you're measuring an oscillation rate in a clock using a crystal. These people don't even know what time is. And that's why human beings are devolving. And it's sad. Right? So we're actually so uncreated that in South America, right, or Central America, right, about 65% of all modern construction and roadways in the surrounding urban area perfectly follows the original astronomical alignment and grid layout of the ancient Mesoamerican city of Teotihuacan. I mean, enough said. His story isn't our story. And in his story, some people got not even 10,000 years worth of evolution. It is what it is. I believe the New Age term is new soul. Yeah. Or if you don't have an inner voice, but you know that's a different story. That has to do with being born through a womb and not one of those early 1900s, 1800s trained kids. So breaking down more narratives real quick. The Mindoro site, right? The Philippine Islands had technologically advanced maritime culture 35,000 years ago. Cavemen, while sophisticated advanced maritime culture 35,000 years ago. There's a difference between his story and our story. That's why when people understand that, right, and then we get out of the whole, racist mindsets of, the division, right, the lines that they drew on the earth, right, when we know Obama's related to the president, but we could get out of these certain isms, right, when we could learn the divine feminine, right, and respect that, when we get out of all these isms, right, and we could just accept facts for what they are, and we accept science for what it is, and we know the damn, like, we face everything, we face all the shadows, we take what's good, we leave what's not. We're left in a beautiful place where our ancestors were very intelligent, right? There were just some things that happened. Not everyone's innocent, right? But what we're left with is a lot of truth, right? A lot of wisdom, right? And then we can move forward to actually help the earth and use technology in a way that doesn't harm it, which is a beautiful thing, which I don't think not everyone appreciates that sentiment when I say that, and that's so weird, because like we're in this symbiotic relationship, right? And not everyone is, and that's the weird part, and that's where I think I don't resonate with some people. And to be honest, if I don't resonate with you for that reason, I'm glad, because I don't like you anyway, if that's the case. But I would hope you would do something and learn from that. You don't have to personally be friends or nothing. You don't have to like me. I don't like you. I can respect people's work. So if you put in that work, it ain't what you did, it's what you do. So, right. Getting back into it, right? Excuse me. Right, getting back into it. Right, and it also happened during the Stone Age, right? So, in this next part, we're going to go over the underwater structures that have been found. A lot of them scientists like to write off as fake. But let's do a little deep dive into it. Surface dive into it. So first, underwater structures in Lake Van, Turkey. So, rewrites mainstream historical narratives. According to their timelines of erosion, no civilization should have existed to be able to build these structures. So water level must have been lower at some point in time in that region. So basically, scientists are coming up with reasons on why, right? The lower the water level. Either way, we're debunking some type of belief or narrative around that region, around that time. That's why this is important for us to know the truth, right? So we could really know the landscapes, we could really know what's going on. Some people are happy with whatever interpretation, let them be. Okay? So this was in Japan, the Yonaguni Monument, Yonaguni, right? And it's an ancient man-made city, right? And it could rewrite history because it's older than Egypt, right? And it's underwater, and it's like, when, at what point was this not underwater? But scientists, scientists, they're saying, oh, it's a natural structure. It was natural. It's natural. It's not. There's no humans built that, because that's impossible according to our timelines that we created, that we believe, right? Their history, that's his story that he believes. So this one's very controversial. Off the coast of Cuba, sonar images find underwater pyramids and city 50,000 years old. But scientists don't like that because it goes against their timeline. So what they're saying is that there isn't enough time for that city to sink. If that whole city was sinking according to their timeline, right? So according to their models, it would take tens of thousands of years for that city to sink, right? And you're trying to say those are also natural geological structures. Okay? So everything they're going to write off, for sure. Next one. Azores Island, near Portugal. 100,000 years old. Perfectly square pyramid found under the ocean, discovered by a sailor using his depth finder. Okay? And Azores Island has pyramids, right? So that's a part of that structure line, right? When that wasn't underwater. But scientists say, oh, that's a volcanic fault line or a natural rock structure. They're just trying to write up. They don't even know. They don't even want to. They don't even know. Half these things they don't even touch again. They don't even want to know. They don't even care. Oh, it's natural. Then they move on. Just like that. Just like that. So the Gulf of Kamba. This is off India. Discovered by India's National Institute of Ocean Technology off the coast of Gujarat. Marine archaeologists identified massive geometric structures sprawling at depths of roughly 120 feet. Right? So they carbon dated it, and it's approximately 12,000 years old. Right? Even though it's still debated by archaeologists, right? So, in future videos, I'm going to show that the Indus Valley wasn't the first civilization. It was actually through India, and they have the rivers, and they have the text to prove it, because the scientists actually found these ancient rivers and these lines. It matches up with the text and what they're talking about, right? And these ancient cities are going to have to do with it, including Dwarka city, right? So, scientists found Dwarka, right? Just like the ancient texts talk about. But the problem is that they dated artifacts, and the artifacts came out to 1500 BC, right? But the problem is, I feel like they need to test the structure older than the artifacts, because we know we refound these structures, so we need to test the structures, and then you can't date rocks, right? So what happened there in Dwarka City? I'm gonna end the video here. This was just to present information showing that our timelines and the beliefs of people and these whole savage things, especially considering the last video, these come from these old narratives, kind of racist narratives, kind of solidified and backed by many scientists over years using pseudoscience, and we can't do that here. If I don't accept some mainstream stuff, that don't mean I'm operating under pseudoscience. What we're doing here is questioning, and we want ultimate truth. And if I haven't stumbled upon that yet, then present it. I'm open on the show. I'm open to all of that stuff. Okay, I'm not playing. about none of this? Not playing. We came here to present real life, challenging information to many fields of science, history, different subjects. So people could ultimately have no choice but to show the respect that has been not showed for thousands of years. So that's why I'm here. And that's gonna come with a lot of flack, and I'm okay with it. My last video got a lot of backlash. Especially when you diss evolution, people get very sensitive. And I'm okay with touching subjects that other people aren't comfortable with. So with this, take the information, right? I'm gonna have the citations and links. Take that. You don't have to roll with my opinions, my beliefs, none of that. That's not what this series is about. It's about using our own minds, opening up, questioning, and then collaborating with information so we can ultimately find the truth together as a collective. So, on that note, is why I'm super appreciated to be in this position. So, I do my best to leave my bias out. My only bias is towards the ancestors, knowing that they didn't lie. Even if some of the stories got rewritten and mistranslated perhaps, and we have to deep dive on what they really mean and what they're talking about, we're okay with that. We're okay with questioning everything. But that's the angle we're coming with. And 15, 16 videos in, I presented more than enough information. And I'm still coming with more. There's going to be a part 3. Part 3 is going to be more on the biology, DNA side of connecting these cultures. So the idea that people are spread out and not, trading and amongst communication and acting like that there was only like these races here, these races here, these races here. That's some stuff that we're going to uncover and debunk in the next video. So for the people who watch, thank you. I appreciate it. Next time you see me, it's gonna be lit. For the next video, it's gonna be something special. So thank you. Have a good day, good night, wherever you're at. Peace. Peace, collective.